It's the truth. These SP3s are the most beautiful lens that I think I've ever shot on. And if you're a filmmaker, unless you've been living under a rock, you have heard of Cooke optics. They have the most iconic look to their lenses in the history of cinema, pretty much. So you can imagine my delight when I got an email asking if I wanted to test these out. There was no need to ask twice, mate, and I honestly am blown away by how beautiful these lenses really are. Anyway, enough of the fanboy, mate. We can leave that for another time. Let's talk a little bit about the specs of the Cooke SP3s, and I'm also going to talk about why I love these lenses so much and why I think the image gives you such a beautiful look, and try and break down myself what the Cooke Look is. So Cooke lenses are iconic for having this particular look, which everyone calls the Cooke Look. So I'll try and break down what I think these guys have got in store in terms of a particular style or a particular look about them. And it's not just the look itself, it's the physical build of the lenses which makes these so easy to operate. So they are a full frame 2.4 rehoused remake of the iconic Cooke Speed Panchros. The Cooke Speed Panchros have literally had iterations of that lens for close to 100 years, and they are pretty much the most iconic cinema lens that there is out there. So you would imagine that these things really do have a lot to live up to. And honestly, I think Cooke have done an incredible job to get as close to that Speed Panchro look as they have in this tiny little housing that they've managed on the SP3s. If you want to go and see a really detailed comparison compared to some of the other Speed Panchro iterations, head over to CVP, because Jake and the team over at CVP have done an incredible comparison with the SP3s and the original Speed Panchro iterations. So the SP3s come in a 6 lens set. We've got an 18mm, a 25mm, a 32mm, a 50, a 75, and a 100mm. All of the lenses are a T2.4 across the board, so they're not mega fast, but in my opinion, they're definitely fast enough with the kind of characteristics that they have, along with the fact that they're obviously a full frame lens. The kind of sensors that these things are going to be going on are going to be mega sensitive, so you don't really need to go much faster than 2.4 in my opinion, especially when you're going to be manual focusing. And speaking of manual focusing, the focus rings and the gears on these focus rings, in my opinion, are the best single operator manual focus lens kit that I've used. As soon as I started pulling focus on these, it felt like I've had these lenses for years, right? It's like a lot of the manual focus lenses that I currently own, I've used them for so many years that I can just pull focus and I feel like I can get a really, really good focus point whenever I'm using them lenses. And these, pretty much as soon as I picked them up, they were so easy to focus on. So they haven't actually got a linear focus all the way from infinity down to their minimum focus distances. So you actually get more and more room and detail as you come down to their minimum focuses, so that you can be a lot more detailed in your minimum focus area. And when I was focusing with these lenses, it was just such a breeze. Without a doubt, the easiest lenses that I've had to manual focus on, hands down. And you'll also notice that the focus gears are nice and wide. So that isn't just easier to mount your motors and stuff like that. It's actually a lot easier as a solo operator to just grab the lens and start focusing. You haven't just got this tiny little strip to focus on, you've got a massive ring to play about with, and it's so, I know that don't sound great. And the focus throw is only 160 degrees across the entire set. So as a solo operator, you really can pull from infinity all the way to your minimum distance, and that is going to be really beneficial. But obviously we've got that option to stick your gears on as well, because there will be a lot of people that end up using these in much higher budget productions with a massive crew, first AC, that are going to stick some gears on this, and obviously first AC pull in focus. These things really are miniature, mate. They're like a really old school tiny vintage 35mm, and they are built so densely. I feel like you could throw this about. Obviously I'm not going to do that, but you can tell that Cooke have really had like literally 100 years to get housings right and build lenses to literally up to Cooke standard. So Cooke have clearly had the new generation of, I guess, like solo filmmakers, solo operators in mind by trying to bring that classic vintage Panchro look into a much more manageable, sizable and usable set of lenses. So let's talk about the look of these things and why I personally think that these are the most beautiful set of lenses that I've used. The image that comes out of these lenses it's almost 3D, right? And that is a combination of the contrast that we get out of these lenses. I feel like they're incredibly contrasty. They're way more contrasty in the center of the frame, which does make the center of that frame feel like it's popping out at you, and the edges of the frame slowly drift off into like less and less contrast. And that is also the same with the sharpness. So on these lenses, that typical Cooke Look has that sharpness in the center. Now, when I talk about sharpness, I don't feel like these lenses are overly sharp. In my opinion, they've got like the perfect amount of detail and not to the point where they're like clinical, hurting my eyes sharp. And you'll notice that that sharpness slowly drifts off and feathers out towards the edge of the frame. And it does it so softly and so beautifully. That, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why that Cooke Look is so iconic. That contrast combined with the sharpness all at the center of the frame, combined with the way that the focus actually rolls off from the focus point. The way that that focus rolls off is so incredibly smooth. It's almost like someone's painting the image with a feather. You know, they're like feathering off that beautiful focus point. And when it comes to the bokeh, it makes me feel like everything that's in focus has higher contrast, and then that background, that bokeh, really allows the foreground to burst out of the frame like it's some sort of 3D effect without it looking overworked or over sharp. It's just got this really elegant, beautiful look about it. And the bokeh kind of swirls in the background. You'll notice that the bokeh will swirl, and across the set as well. The bokeh in the center of the frame comes out beautifully circular, and as we get towards the edges, we do get that cat eye effect that comes in as you go towards the edge of the frame. And I think all of these elements really do give Cooke that particular Cooke look. And it's so incredible how they've managed to take this old vintage lens and rehouse it with all of these incredible characteristics that make that lens so iconic, and stick it in something this big and completely rehouse it for this new modern system of cameras that are out now. So I know I've just like hit on these lenses super hard, but there's got to be a downside, and mate, I'm not going to lie to you, there is. Now this is going to depend on what side of the fence you sit on. You've either been a DP or an operator or an owner operator for the last 15, 20 plus years, or you're in this weird new wacky world of solo operating, you're a solo filmmaker, or you're in this like creator space. Now, if you're coming from that older school operator space, most owner operators, DPs, would jump at the opportunity to own a set of 6 Cooke lenses that look very, very similar to the Speed Pancros. It's probably been a dream of theirs since they started their bloody career, right? To get the entire set of 6 for just under £19,000 is an absolute steal. However, if you're on this side of the spectrum, where you're a bit like me, you're a solo shooter, you shoot documentaries yourself, you've got a really small little team, maybe you've only been shooting in this space for the last 10, 12, 5 years, right? Nearly £4 a lens is going to feel completely outrageous, and to be spending close to £19,000 on a set of 6 lenses would be absolutely absurd. So my opinion on where these guys sit in this space is like, we've taken the old school look of the most iconic cinema lenses in the world, brung them into this new world of solo filmmaking, solo shooting, and I'm pretty sure it's where a lot of the higher end commercials are going to be going. These much smaller flange mounts, much smaller kit, much smaller cameras, not just in this solo filmmaking space. I do feel like these are going to be used on their much higher level productions. So I can see these being almost a career investment for a lot of owner DPs, right? If you're a camera operator or if you're a DP, spending 18 grand on a set of probably the most beautiful lenses that you can get on a modern system, having these in your arsenal is going to be great for getting hired. A lot of people are going to want to hire an owner operator that does own these lenses. And it's almost like you're not going to need another set of lenses unless you're going for something completely different. If you're going for a look that's very clean, clinical, maybe you're shooting commercials, for example, product stuff, yeah, these lenses might not be the one. But to have your own set of investment lenses, these are probably going to be career-long holdings of a set of lenses. Now, the good thing is, if you don't want to go and bloody fork out 18 bags for a set of lenses, just hire them. I've never hit on anything this hard, to be honest. Even my girlfriend's gonna be like, is everything all right? There was one thing that I didn't like about the build, and that is how loose the lens caps are. I would have liked on the lens cap at the top there to be a bit of felt, so when you pushed it on, you didn't hear it. I want it to just go like a glove. That's the only downside that I found using these bloody beauties. Anyway, you lot, I hope you enjoyed this little review overview of the Cooke SP3s. Massive thank you to Cooke for lending me these things for a couple of weeks. It has honestly been a pleasure. And as always, mate, I'll be catching you lot in the next one, mate.